First of all, thank you for amazing show, because it was show. A lot of interesting thoughts, really a lot of outstanding ideas. But which of them you will choose and say this is the most important of my presentation, and why?
Oh, yeah. I think one of the biggest observations I had in the 6 years it took me to write the book really was that culture matters enormously. Culture of a country as well as the culture of a company. The rules you set, the leaders you have, the way they control the population determines whether or not that country is going to succeed, but also whether or not that company is going to succeed. And right now, we're taking away a lot of the freedoms and encroaching a lot on the people who were previously free. And that's that freedom that enabled the Industrial Revolution to happen. It was the ability of people to come together, to discuss ideas, to share information, to print things, to share it, to invest in just concepts and ideas, and for society to say, that's good, do it, go for it. That's what launched the Industrial Revolution. We have to ensure that we maintain those freedoms, that we don't use technology to encroach on them and to control us in ways that basically stop people from being a social, because at the end of the day, we're social creatures. And I think that's one of the biggest observations I had, really. We look at companies and we can see that their culture is what determines whether or not they succeed or they fail. Same goes for countries.
You were talking about the observation, and this is your third attendee here in Prague for the P3 conference. Still, I have to ask, are you an optimist or pessimist? Because
pragmatist, I think was the answer I gave before.
The question you never answer.
Yeah, well, I try to be pragmatist. I think one of the things I found quite interesting through the research is that there's always a wind that takes all elements of these sort of waves of change, and society has to recalibrate. It has to work for society. What we're seeing, I guess, in some countries like China, for example, where I showed they're using technology, they would say they're using technology to work for society, in so much they make sure that people are safe, but in doing so they're encroaching on their freedoms. Now, a lot of the Chinese are okay with that. In fact, you saw in the video that I showed, they're prepared to sacrifice their liberty for security. In the West, that's not so true. We've always said, anyone who sacrifices liberty for security, deserves neither, and will get neither. So am I an optimist? I'm an optimist if we recalibrate. I'm an optimist if we ensure that the tools that we develop work for the benefit of the entirety of humanity and not just those at the top. I'm an optimist if we use this technology to cure cancer, to get nuclear fusion working, to create clean energy, to explore the galaxy. I'm an optimist if we use it for the right things, and I think we will. We always have done at a macro level. But at the micro level, we have to adjust, we have to recalibrate when things start to go off kilter, when too much wealth is concentrated in too few hands, when politics is for the few, not the many, when corporations are ruling the show. So as long as we make the right decisions, I'm an optimist. If we don't, I'm a pessimist. So I'm kind of in the middle, really. If we recalibrate and we ensure that technology is for humanity's benefit and not the other way around, then I'm optimistic.
Okay, you said, I like this idea, or you said China and social ratings. Mm-hmm. Is everything devilish on this idea, or could you imagine that this kind of ideas will be also using the other countries, in more democratic way?
I think it's almost certainly that they're going to be used in other countries. I think people are going to look at China and use these technologies. Let's be honest, they are already. They are already. We are seeing people lose their jobs because of tweets. We are seeing people's careers being ruined because of their opinions. We used to live in a society where speech was protected. We used to live in a society where you can say anything and people would fight for your right to say it. They might not agree with it, but you could say it. We don't anymore. We now live in a society where if you say the wrong thing, an anti-progressive message, for example, you will lose your job over it, you can lose your career. What used to be mean comments in the playground now get recorded online. Things you said when you're 17 can come back and ruin your job when you're 30. This is a new world. We haven't had this before. This lack of privacy and this encroachment on free speech is kind of what made the West successful. The East, specifically China's never had that. It's always had a very top-down control model, so they take to that social credit system very well. But let's be honest, we're using those technologies now. The FBI, the CIA, they're already using these technologies to watch every website you go onto, to watch your tweets, to watch your Facebook posts. This amalgamation of these global technocracies and governments coming together is, in my mind, quite dangerous in terms of our freedoms. We've already heard Angela Merkel, for example, saying to Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, you're taking care of people who are posting anti-migrant statements, and he's like, yes, I'm on it. Well, that means you're going into the conversations of normal people to see if you're saying anything we don't like, reporting it and getting those people jailed. Well, we've never had that before. We used to have a situation where certain countries, like the Ottoman Empire, for example, and even around the French Revolution, they banned clubs for a while because they didn't want people to gather, because they could be talking of revolution, could be saying things against the political leaders. Turkey, for example, bans YouTube, bans Twitter, because it doesn't want people saying things that it doesn't agree with. And we've always looked at those as being the sort of despotic nations of autocratic leaderships. But in reality, the West is doing exactly the same. It's just being less honest.
So my next question will be, okay, this is the new era coming,
yes,
or already started. So how should companies adapt to this, or how mankind, every single man, woman, employee,
big question,
should adapt to this
new
era?
Let's start with companies. I think, we're in a global world now. Globalization is out of the box and there's no putting it back. We're in a world where, as I showed you there, people in a village in Vietnam can make more money than I can ever dream of earning, from 3 days' effort. An incredible opportunity exists for companies that are prepared to grab it. And I think the mindset of the organization now, and remembering that an organization isn't a being, it's only made up of humans, and the humans at the top are the ones who really set the culture of the corporation. They need to take advantage of this opportunity, and they need to do that by thinking differently. They need to do it by looking at the opportunity, not just the risk, to realize, who are our customers and where are they going and what do they value, and how do we use all these technologies to deliver more value to them, rather than just looking at it and going, well, how can we save some money? How can we get rid of some people? Those companies might win in the short term, but they'll lose in the long term. The companies that look long term will be the ones that look at the customer, look at the consumer, say, how do we use all these tools to develop more value for customers so that they retain loyal to us, and wherever they go, we have them at the center of our universe. And if you look at companies like Amazon, that's exactly what they're doing. They've just put the customer slap in the center of their universe. And new technologies from Amazon Echoes to Prime, all these things, all centered around the customer. And most of the other competitors and suppliers just, can't keep up, because they're very centered around themselves. That's all they're interested in, themselves and their own bottom lines and their own profit margins. You have to turn that on its head. And that means the leaders of those organizations need to open their mindsets. And they also need to empower their people. You should employ smart people to do smart things. Most companies employ smart people and then tell them what to do. And that's their mistake.
Mm-hmm. And
the other question was humanity as a whole, wasn't it?
The next question will be almost the same. So what can I do, me as a person, to adapt to this new era?
Well, I think...
Because, you are talking about clever people, nice companies, but me, as myself.
Well, I think that's a really interesting question. Every individual is different. Everyone has a different drive. I think what this technology does, is it enables people to act without permission. And what I mean by that is, previously you used to have people, you said, we're going to get a career, we'll go for a company, and the company will tell me what to do, and if I work for 25 years, I'll make it at the top. Now, we're in this new golden age, where basically find something that people value and you are passionate about, and do it. Mm-hmm. I've just written a book, it's just to be easy. I didn't want to go for a traditional publisher, I wanted to self-publish. I didn't have to ask permission to do that. I just had to take the time and the effort and the money to do the research and to put the hours in. But that means I didn't have to ask permission. People can create music and reach an audience through YouTube without having to go for a traditional media publisher. They can create content. People will pay you, Patreon subscribers will pay you if they believe you add value to their lives. So one of the great values is find something you're passionate about that other people value. Kevin Kelly, who once said that all you need is 1,000 fans. If you can find 1,000 people who love what you do, you're made. So yeah, look at this technology and think, how can I use what's available out there to do what I'm passionate about and what I believe other people value?
So you are basically talking about a golden era.
I think there is, in some respects, definitely. Because if you think throughout the history of humanity, only those at the top won. Everyone else, even those who moved into the middle classes for the Industrial Revolution, most of their life was not great. The high levels of infant mortality, restricted education. It was only for the few. Now we've got things in our pockets. They've got magic rectangles in our pockets that allows us to Google anything. We can learn how to become a Python programmer or machine learn. There's things like Udacity or FutureLearn or these sort of online universities for free, or for, at least for very small amounts. I could learn anything. So I think the future of humanity is going to be based between those that become passive consumers, that are going to be just entertained by the myriad of different ways they can be entertained, from virtual reality to Netflix to whatever, to those that actually take the opportunity, and that will be the great divide.
Talking about the opportunity, what about the next decade? It will be the best or the worst for?
It'll be the most disruptive. And I think, again, for the disruptors, it'll be the best. For the disrupted, it'll be the worst. Decides which side you on, really, I think. So I think it will be the most disruptive, and it's going to be very challenging. It's going to ask brand new questions of society, brand new questions of our political leaders. Politics changes very slowly, and it's one of the big challenges right now is that technology is changing society quicker than politics can keep up. And so politics is getting in the way. And a lot of people are just saying, why don't we just let artificial intelligence run our country, run our government? Why would we, these people are driven by their own agendas, their own, they're driven by ego, they're driven by very human traits when machines simply aren't. So if we want to administer, rubbish collections or run our council, why don't we just let machines do it?
Last question.
Okay.
But the basic one.
Okay.
You opened a lot of questions in your presentation.
Yes.
And you were talking about the new era, disruptions, the redefining the world, the questions, the people, the humankind. What is the basic questions for you right now? What is the main
question?
Basic question?
As an individual, I think the question for the person is the same as the question for the corporation, which is, what's your why? This sort of concept, Simon Sinek raised it with, start with why. What's your why? What is the thing that really defines you as an individual? What are you passionate about? What do you value? And I think that search for meaning is going to be the biggest challenge moving forward, because we will ultimately end in a world where a lot of things are going to be automated. And as I said earlier, if all you've got to sell is the things on the end of your wrists and the sweat on your brow, that isn't going to be needed. And we've seen some very dystopian outcomes. If I take the UK for an example, where we've got sinker states where whole generations have never worked. So there's got grandparents and parents and children who've no one in that family has ever worked. And they get drawn to crime, they get drawn to drugs, they get drawn, because there's nothing in their life that centers their activities. And I think this is going to be one of the big challenges. Search for meaning and purpose in a world of automation is probably going to be the biggest question. So for each individual, what is your purpose? What do you believe into? And then go do it. And then for corporations, it's exactly the same. Why should you exist? Why should, there's so many companies who just believe in their own hubris. That think, we've been around for 100 years, we're going to be around for 100 more. Well, Sears went bankrupt this week. It was the biggest retailer in the US once. 10 years ago, it was still, it was in the top 10, FTSE top 10. It's not anymore, it's gone bankrupt because, the world has changed faster than they could change.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.